Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Artisan Workshop tutorial series. And in this episode, I will be adding save game functionality to our campaign behavior, which will let us store the inventory of the Artisan workshops. And this will be an important step towards implementing the actual workshop management features. So we need some sort of continuity between save games and save loads. So we will add actual state for our workshops. So right now in game, we have these artisan brewer NPCs. And if we talk to them, we can buy beer from them, but they will let us buy as long as we have money. So I want to change this so that the workshop actually has internal inventory. It will actually take it from the internal storage of the workshop and give it to us. So to implement the state for the workshop, we need to talk about save system and how you can save data in your campaign behaviors. When we created our campaign behavior, we were forced to write this sync data method. And this is actually what we will use to define our savable data. So you can find this documentation for the save system if you search for Bannerlord documentation save system. It should be the first result here, but I will also describe what you need to know about this. So let's say that I want to have my state. Let's say that for my state, for the artisan workshops, I want to have something like a dictionary going from some string ID, which we will decide the format of later, into some sort of artisan workshop state. And this will be art, and we will call this dictionary artisan workshops. And we need to create this type for the artisan workshop state. And then when we want to save this, we will write into our sync data store sync and some sort of string key. In this case, this can be artisan workshops and a reference to our artisan workshops field. But this is not quite enough. We also need a savable type definer. And this savable type definer will be what lets us save our own data structures. So by default, you can only save things that are already savable in Tailworld's code. So we need this savable type definer to mark our artisan workshop state as a savable type. So let's also do our own savable type definer. And this needs to inherit from this thing, savable type definer. And if we look at the example for this, so here they have a code sample. So first of all, you need constructor with a big number that will not clash with any other mods or the native. So if we just ask the compiler to give us a constructor, I can format this a bit. We don't need this int argument because we will just give a constant value for the base. So let's just come up with some large number. So this number should be roughly in the tens or hundreds of millions, because that will be close enough to the limit of the integer range. So close to the maximum value that goes into signed 32-bit integer. It just needs to be unique enough big number. And then we should define our own class types. So let's write our own defined class types. And here we want to define artisan workshop state as a savable type. So add class definition type of artisan workshop state. And this ID should be 1, I think. First should be 1 and then 2 and so forth. But we also need to define container definitions. So on its own, this will only let us save raw Artisan Workshop state. But if we want to save, for example, dictionary, then we need to have specific construct, and then we need a specific container definition for each of the different contained types that we use. So in this case, we are going to use dictionary from string to Artisan Workshop state. So we will need define container definitions and construct container definition with type of and our dictionary from string to Artisan Workshop state. So this will be enough for our savable type definer. Now we should also write our actual state, what we want to have here. So first of all, we want to have some sort of stock. So inventory. So this will just be how many of this item this Artisan Workshop has in stock. So, and here we have to write savable field, and again with this has to be combined with some sort of number, which will be rolling save ID. And it already suggests that we do another one, and this will be, let's say we have another one which will be the capacity. So the maximum amount of items you can put into this inventory. And in case you ever want to remove stuff from one of these savable types, I recommend that instead of removing them completely, you write something like deprecated inventory capacity or something like this. Maybe you want to prefix it with underscores or something, just to mark that this save ID is already used. And because if you ever accidentally reuse this this ID, for example in this case 2, that might lead to conflicts with existing save data that people have on their computers with their saves if they have used previous versions of your mod. So it's good practice to never reuse these save IDs. But we will, of course, not immediately deprecate what we write here. So we can just do savable field 3 for our daily production amount. So I want to have one field in the state that defines how many of these items will be produced every day. Let's say I also want to write some sort of setter function for the inventory stock. So that we can make sure that it stays within the capacity. So let's do like public add to stock with some amount. And we can write here inventory stock plus amount. And if inventory stock goes over the capacity, then we put it back into the capacity, or we limit it to the capacity. And also we can do a sanity check here, that if the inventory stock ever goes negative, you could decide yourself what you want your error handling logic to be. Maybe you want to crash here, or maybe we just want to put up a message negative inventory stock. Let's say this will be our error handling for now, and this of course should be void. So now we have something to manipulate the amount of items we have here in the Artisan Workshop state. And this should be all saved because we have defined these as savable fields, and we added our Artisan Workshops into our sync data, and we made sure that this dictionary is actually savable with the savable type definer. So that is all looking pretty good. Next, I want to have some sort of way of accessing the Artisan Workshop states. So we need to make sure that to properly use this dictionary, we need to have some sort of way of indexing the Artisan Workshops that we have here. So let's try to put our dictionary access into just one place to make it a bit easier for ourselves. So let's say we write something like, let's say we write some sort of mapping from one workshop into an Artisan workshop state. And we need some sort of ID, and this needs to be unique for every workshop. So let's just say that we go to the workshop settlement and get the string ID for this thing, and then underscore workshop string ID. No, workshop. Oh, tag will work for us. Yes, workshop tag. So this will produce some sort of, let's say, settlement underscore workshop tags look like this, I think. So the workshop tags are just basically increasing numbers for each workshop in each settlement. And then we should try to get value from from our dictionary with this ID. This suggestion is actually fine. And this try get value will return Boolean based on if we actually managed to get the value out of the dictionary or not. And if we did not get anything, then we should create new workshop state. And here we can initialize the capacity and the current stock and the daily production amount. So let's say the stock should be, of course, 0. Let's say the maximum capacity is 10 and the daily production amount will be 1 item per day. And then we need to actually add this to our Artisan workshops, and then we can just return the state. And this will all work with references. So this will return a reference that will also be the same reference that we added to the dictionary. So next thing I want to do is to actually do the daily production. So we had somewhere a daily tick event listener. So let's go into our daily tick. And here we already check for breweries. So let's just come here and get the Artisan workshop that is related to this workshop that is brewery. So we get the related workshop, Artisan workshop, and then we do the daily production for this particular Artisan workshop. So daily production amount, and that should just work, I feel. So we get the related Artisan workshop and we add to the stock based on the daily production amount. So this should already give us a very basic version of the inventory, but currently our only way of interacting with this inventory should be the dialogues. So we need to also change the dialogues with the Artisan Brewer to manipulate the inventory. And also we need to check at the beginning of the discussion if this workshop has any stock left. But here we have a slight problem, which is that if you remember how we created these dialogues, we don't actually know that much about the agent we are conversing with. We just know that they are Artisan Brewer. We don't know where we are or which workshop this brewer even belongs to. But there should already be something for figuring the current workshop in the base game, because if you go talk to a shop worker, there is a dialogue option for buying the associated workshop. So if we come here and search for shop worker and add shop worker dialogues, somewhere in here we should be able to find how they get the current workshop for the worker that you are talking to. So let's see, there is dialogue from workshop buy, and then there is an option to say yes, I want to buy this workshop, And if you say, yes, I want to buy this workshop, the consequence is this workshop 19 on consequence. And here you can see that they get the current workshop from the conversation one-to-one conversation agent. So let's see, find current workshop from agent. This is a private method. So we could just copy this into our own code. We could call this using some reflection magic, but I don't think it is worth the effort just to use this existing piece. So we can as well just copy this, and let's add some using statements. So this should be enough to get us the current workshop based on the agent that we are talking to. And if you look at how this actually works, but you see that this will actually get the target tag from the agent that you're talking to. If you remember how we created our Artisan Brewer, we put this tag here, the workshop tag, as the spawn tag. And this will be the tag that is find current workshop also uses to figure out which one of the workshops we are currently in, or which one the NPC we are talking to belongs. Let's say I want to make this a bit more convenient for us. So let's define a couple more helper methods here. So let's do conversation artisan workshop. That is a typo, artisan. So let's say this will do just this part of going from conversation agent into the current workshop. So and conversation mission is not defined currently. Let's say this will if workshop is not null, then we will get the artisan workshop for this workshop, and we should of course return this. And if it was null, then we also have to return null. Although it should never be null, but it should never be null. So I mean, some pretty bad things will happen if we ever actually hit this. So I would actually prefer to use asserts instead of returning null, but we can at this moment just trust that this will always work. And let's also make another helper here, which will give us the inventory of the Artisan workshop. Or the inventory stock. So this can be conversation artisan workshop. Let's here do proper if checking. Because if we just want to get the stock, we can easily return 0 if it is not defined. So this has nice default value of 0 inventory. So next we need to actually write our conditions in the dialog tree. So we need to change this a bit. So this first, our starter line at the moment already sort of assumes that there is things in stock because he asks us if we want to buy. So let's rename this Artisan Brewer Talk into Artisan Brewer Talk in stock. And let's add another condition before this, which will be our out of stock condition. And this will not go into the actual dialogue. This will instead end the discussion immediately. So let's write the line here, and this will be, let's say, are you here to buy Artisan beer? Unfortunately, we are out of stock. come back later. And the condition will be on top of the requirement that we are talking with an artisan brewer. We should also check that the conversation artisan workshop stock is 0 or less. I mean, it should be only 0, but whatever. And then another thing we need to change is that when you actually buy artisan beer, we need to decrement the current stock. So here we need another. We need to again get the conversation artisan workshop, and then we can just use add to stock with -1 to decrement the inventory. So let's recap what we changed here. So first of all, we created this artisan workshops state dictionary, and we defined this as something that should be synced together with our behavior here. And we made a savable type definer for our type and for our container type, which is dictionary from string to artisan workshop state. We defined our state as just this very simple class with 3 integers, which are stock, maximum inventory capacity, and the daily production amount. Then every day when we go through the workshops, we will also increment the inventory with the daily production amount. And finally, here we did some conversation magic to get the current workshop from the conversation. And then we changed the conversation logic to check that we actually have some beer in the stock. And then when we buy stuff, we also decrement the current inventory. So let's go in game and see if any of this works. So first of all, let's wait. Well, we immediately get one crash here, which is complaining about artisan workshops being null. So I guess we have to also put here some sort of default value for this, so that our dictionary is not null. Okay, and let's try again. And let's wait for like a day or so. I mean, now it's night, so I should wait for it to be daytime, and then let's try and go visit the artisan brewer and see if he wants to sell some of his items to us. Okay, I can buy 2, I can buy 3. Okay, and then he's out of stock. So this seems to be working properly. So let's wait for one more day and see if he will again sell to us. Okay, now it's one more day has passed and he is willing to sell us one more. So this seems to be working properly. So then let's save and load. And then we can try buying here at Danglanus, and then should fail. And then we can go to some other town, and that should have around 4 items in stock. So 1 for each day that has passed in the campaign. So now we have saved and loaded. And this guy, of course, should have 0 items in his stock. But the important test is to see that other cities with breweries still have items in their stock. So this Fukaon workshop should have run for 3 or 4 days, I think. He's willing to sell us 1, 2, 3, and 3. So that seems fairly good. even after saving and loading, the inventory seems to be persistent, so everything seems to be working properly. And that is everything I wanted to show in this episode. We now have working persistent state for our workshops. So in the next episode, we can start to go further into the workshop management features. So we will start to add stuff that requires us to buy the workshops for ourselves and lets us manage it a bit more conveniently. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode.